Let's get some analysis now from Joe Siracusa. He is a professor of security and diplomacy at Curtin University. Thank you so much, Professor, for being with us here today on the NewsHour. What was it about Gorbachev that allowed him to be the kind of leader who ultimately brought an end to the Cold War?
Good afternoon. Well, he was a visionary, and of course, all great historical moments usually have two people involved. And he was able to interact with Ronald Reagan to do something that nobody had done before. And you know, the man single-handedly ended the nuclear arms race. I mean, by the late 60s, early 70s, the Cold War had morphed into a nuclear arms race. Both powers were looking for advantages. They were looking for ways to kill each other, as a matter of fact. And he comes along, and he gets a little tired of his own military-industrial complex, the way Ronald Reagan did, as a matter of fact. You know, taking a lot of money, and they're corrupting the economy. And Reagan sees sincerity in Gorbachev. He sees a man that he could do business with, the way Maggie Thatcher said. And he takes him seriously. And Gorbachev, who's conducting his own revolution in Russia in the 1980s, invites the Americans to come along. And before it's over, you know, the Cold War is over. But look, people have to understand this too. While he gets very high marks for ending the nuclear arms race, which I think is very important, critical, as a matter of fact, he also instituted a number of reforms that went sideways. In other words, while Gorbachev gets credit for ending the Cold War and the arms race, the unraveling of the Soviet Union is the unintended consequences of perestroika and glasnost. Now, I've talked to Russian intellectuals over the years, and they all seem to think that it was the West that brought the Soviet Union down. That's not true. The day that Gorbachev cut those deals with Ronald Reagan, he never dealt from a position of strength. He never delivered anything without military strength behind him. He had 40,000 nuclear weapons when he was dealing with the Americans. He never dealt from a position of weakness. In fact, when he was taking these chances of dealing with the West, he was taking the chance there might even be a counter-revolution. That is, he could have easily been killed. I mean, he was at physical risk all the time that his conservatives or his right wing or his military would do him in, which is quite true, as a matter of fact.
Do you think that, do you think that it's those reforms that have caused Russians to not share the same sentiment that we're seeing from the West of Gorbachev being praised?
That's right. These are separate and distinct things. But while we give him high marks for ending the Cold War, the Russian people give him low marks because the reforms didn't pan out the way he intended. But as I say, they're unintended. Now, there are two things here that we have to keep into consideration. A number of Americans think that they won the Cold War. That is, they think that they forced the Russians into bankruptcy to match American systems like the SDI. Nothing could be further from the truth. Americans went running around the world trying to change everything in their image and likeness because they thought they won the Cold War. I'm talking here about the neocons led by George W. Bush and Cheney and those people. And the other thing is that the Chinese went crazy trying to figure out what happened to the Bolshevik Party. And the Chinese did not want to go the way of the Bolsheviks. They've spent billions of dollars trying to figure out what happened to the Soviet Union. I mean, their final answer, of course, is corruption and that kind of thing. And the other thing, too, is that Gorbachev says in interviews with The Economist and in his memoirs that what probably brought the Soviet Union to an end, that is, the inability to cope with things, was the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986. He said the country could be really divided between before and after Chernobyl. They couldn't deal with it. They couldn't deal with the lies and the obfuscation and the rest of it. They couldn't deal with the economic consequences.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that Putin, especially with the war in Ukraine, has somewhat destroyed Gorbachev's political legacy?
Well, I think what he's done is he's underscored what Gorbachev tried to do and what he accomplished. There's no doubt about it that that Putin's going in the opposite direction. You know, Putin was a young lieutenant colonel in the KGB looking at foreign intelligence at about this time, and he's taking notes. And Gorbachev's trying to be honest about it, but Gorbachev's a good communist. He doesn't want the party to end. He just wants to bring it up to speed. So we got the Americans who are engaged in now over 100 interventions since the fall of the Soviet Union, and we got the Chinese who are desperate these days to try to prevent going the way of the Soviet Union. So you can see some of the wrong lessons were drawn from what had actually happened. But look, the man was a one-off. He was a visionary. And, it's no accident that he is a prophet without honor in his own land. But I'll tell you, in terms of ending the nuclear arms race, the man deserved 10 Nobel Prizes. And for that reason, we will never forget him.
All right, Professor Joe Siracusa, thank you so much for your contributions. We really appreciate it.